So Alibaba just released Qwen 3, which is a brand new open source or open weights model, which actually rivals the likes of O1, O3 Mini, and DeepSeek. So in today's video, we're going to look at how does it compare to the other models. We're going to briefly look at what are the models that were released, kind of how it works, just very briefly. Then we'll look at how to get it completely for free to actually chat away to it online or as an API, and then we'll look at it inside NA10 to see if it works with agents, and then we'll go to VS Code and see how it works with MCP servers, because those are the big two wonders with these types of open weights models. Sure, it's cool that they're open weight, but the kind of thing is, like, are they really usable for today's use cases, which are agents and MCP servers? Because if you've ever tried to create some NA10 agents, you'll know that if you have a rubbish model, it can't really use the tools that you give it because it can't understand them. So we'll look at that. So first things first, Qwen 3 has been released, and it has released a bunch of models. So in the release here, you can see that they have a bunch of models. Quite hard to read this. I don't really understand words very well, so I'm more of a visual kind of guy. This here makes more sense to me. So they've released Qwen 3, that's the name of them. There's two types. We have dense models and we have MOE, which is mixture of experts. Essentially, when you have a bunch of parameters, right? So just imagine these here are parameters with some input, some output, right? When you, let me connect them up. So just imagine that looks better than it does. Once you have them all connected, a dense model means that when you have one input, it will go through every single parameter to give you an output, right? Whereas in a mixture of experts model, you would have, for example, this is tiny so it doesn't make any sense, but say like you had this here, and this would be some specific expert in something. This here would be some specific expert in something, for example. And what it means is then that we would have so many parameters, so many billion, but only so many would be active at once because it would be doing one specific thing. So sometimes you'll have seen or heard of routing to different LLMs. So you give it some query, some router, right? And then that then goes and it will use part of the query will be for Claude, part will be for Grok, part will be for OpenAI, right? And that's essentially so that it gives you a better response. Well, that condensed down as a mixture of experts model, right? Because it's inside one model. So the different releases they have, Qwen is the name, and then this is the number of parameters. So this first dash something, 0.6 billion, so tiny, all the way up to 32 billion, right? And then we have mixture of experts, and we have a 30 billion and a 235 billion. And then the A just means active, so that's like active at any one time. So like that amount here, all this amount here. Either or would be like 3. So in this example, you could think of this as, basically 30 billion, and each of these is 3. So then it can only be one at a time. And the same here, 235, but 22 can run at a time. So that is the kind of spread of models. Essentially, the little ones here, you would just use locally, normally. If you really want the best, you probably need the biggest model, which you can't run locally. I have a way to run them locally, which we'll show you soon, and I've ran them for an experiment and we'll see the results. So that's the models that were released. If we look at how they compare to the other models, here we have just a bunch of different benchmarks, the same here as well. Whoops, I suppose, hey, maybe zooming in is a good idea. Okay, yeah, you can see most of it. So here we have the MOE, mixture of experts, and the dense, and if we compare them along, we can see that essentially they beat DeepSeek in like everything. OpenAI, again, they beat that in like everything. And then the same Gemini 2.5 Pro, let me see. No, they're worse in everything for that pretty much. But some things are actually better, which is interesting. So as you can see, it's the top of the line model, the mixture of experts top model. That is comparative to actually some of the best models that are out there today. Even better in some cases here, as you can see. But always take these with a pinch of salt. For example, at the bottom here, if we see here, AIME, basically, for 3 of these, they've actually kind of changed how it's worked. So basically, they've changed it so that the response is better, so more aligned. So they've kind of taken like a variation of different models. so that they can kind of skew the results in their favour, which, you know, that's what they were doing for Llama 4 as well, which people weren't happy about. But, you know, whatever. It kind of is what it is. Just take it as you take it. As you can see here, for example. And what you really want to do is just see how does it work in real life. So the one thing we'll look at here essentially is that frontier models, they're the top of the line. They go through all this. You get the model, you bring this in, you distill it, and then you get your smaller models. Now these lightweight models, they're not as good, but they are more efficient, more cost effective, etc, etc. So how do they actually work? How do they compare? So there's a couple of places you can go and use them. So if you look here on the blog post, Qwen chat, we can go here and chat directly to Qwen, which we'll do in a moment. And then we have GitHub, Hugging Face, ModelScope, Kaggle, see the demo and check out Discord. So Qwen chat is one we'll look at. Hugging Face we'll not look at, but you can look at there. I just find their website's really bad to use, so if I can use it elsewhere, I will. But we have here Qwen.AI, so this is the chat. You can also chat away in OpenRouter. So OpenRouter was actually where I found out that Qwen was released, because I come and check here every day just to see what models people are talking about. And you can see the featured model here, Qwen. As you can see, the number of tokens and stuff that people are using isn't that many, but it's still the big one everyone's talking about. And on here you can see you can use literally every single one of the models. This also is where I had found the DeepSeek R1 variant by Microsoft as well, which is cool. But yeah, from here you can use the models, interact with them, and have a try, all from one account, and get API keys, which is cool. So you can see here, 235 billion, A22. If you click on that, you can then get some information here, including the API. But what we're going to do is chat to it here. So let me get a prompt, and I'm going to go get a prompt from my Apply.AI community and say classroom to prompt base, and I'll give them a game generation prompt. Let's do a 3D car simulator game, and we'll see how it gets on. So we'll paste this in here and see how fast it is and how it gets on. So as you can see, has the thinking, reasoning, whatever we want to call it, and it's going to start thinking about how to handle this prompt here. Whoa, error processing stream. Well, I'm glad that I didn't go away for that. Because as you can see, it actually didn't even work. Let me try that again. Retry. Now we'll see. Because I mean, if it can't create this, then I'll be pretty disappointed, because every model that I've used, this is kind of the benchmark that I do to see, you know, how creative is it, how good is it, functionality, etc. Pretty confused why it says 76.1 seconds thinking, yet it is still thinking as far as I can see. Right, so there we go. It has now completed, or it is completing the actual code. Unless it had finished thinking and it was just rendering it slow to me to let this speed up. That is a possibility, but it is actually really slow, which is pretty disappointing. But is that because of the model, or is that because of the hardware it's running on, or what they've allocated for it? Who knows? To be fair, it's a pretty chunky model. But once this is done, we'll save that and we'll compare it to the likes of Gemini. So, right, let's see. Nothing. Didn't even work. I don't know why. Apparently it doesn't work. There we go. For reference, what it should look like is something like, this is one that we had done for Gemini, and bam, this was the first one that Gemini 2.5 Pro had given us. Meanwhile, Qwen, absolutely nothing. So, I mean, so far, hopeless. But we'll see how it gets on. So, for this here, when we want to run it, I primarily use AI right now for NA10. So basically to make agents, to make workflows, etc., automations. All these kind of automations and stuff as well, you can get inside of school. I teach you essentially everything you need to know in the NA10 masterclass, and I give you templates here. Now, in the community, there's a bunch of people always talking about AI, always staying up to date with the latest in AI, building their own bots, etc., and we are releasing brand new templates. As you can see, here's one. So yeah, we're always up to date always looking at stuff in here, so come along, check it out. Now back to N8N. So I have here OpenRouter. So we have the API for this model. And if we open it up, you can see here we're using the 14 billion free. If we just search free, you can see there's a bunch of Qwen models. Where have they gone? Qwen models here, right? But none of them appear to work. So if we like that, pull that over here, this won't work. Now before I show you it not working, I'll show you it actually working. So it wasn't working before because it appears to be something like N8N's built on LangChain, this tool agent, and this OpenRouter Qwen doesn't support tool agents apparently. So it wasn't working for these MCPs, it wasn't working for this agent, which is unfortunate. But it does work in VS Code, and I'll show you that in a minute. So instead, what I'd done was, actually I tried it with OpenAI to make sure it does work, and it did. But we have here Ollama. Now Ollama allows us to run models locally. So you get this Qwen 3 here, and we can run this locally. So all you have to do is copy this command, paste it into your terminal, and you'll have this running completely locally that you can then chat away to. And as you can see, there's all of the different versions here. I just installed the 4 billion because that's big enough for my computer. The reason I can't show you this running in real time is because it kills my computer. I have a normal Mac. It's like an M1 something. Basically whatever the Mac was in 2022. M1 normal Mac. And it doesn't really do anything, doesn't work properly. For 4 billion it's kind of fine, but as soon as I start getting up into like 16, 32, 32, no chance. But even at 4, I can't touch my computer whilst it runs. But anyway, we have it wired up here. We have an AI agent. We have a bunch of MCP servers here. One for Gmail, one for web browsing, one for posting to Twitter and looking at tweets. So I thought, we have this agent, let's run Qwen through it and see A, is it a good agent, and B, can it use MCP servers? And this here was the response that we got. So I was like, right, what is the most recent email? It should now work. And so, as you can see, it thinks just like DeepSeek R1, for example, in this format's in that same way. And then it gave me this response, which was say, to retrieve the most recent email, I need the message ID of the email, blah, blah, blah. So basically, as you can see here, it actually did go into listing the available tools, and it got these back, but it didn't then go into executing the tools. So I then said yes, but it didn't have a memory. So I plugged the memory in, and I was like, right, do it properly this time. And again, it had come back, and it says, I need the message ID, blah, blah, blah. So it should be able to figure that out, because if I was to hook this up, for example, to OpenAI, which I'll show you now, and there's a pinch of salt, which I'll tell you in a minute about this, but if we hook it up to OpenAI and instead we run this, repost the message, OpenAI will be able to do it. Now, I think the reason it didn't work is because I'm using the 4 billion parameter model. But the thing that is cool is that you can see that it actually does hook up and run Ollama locally. So if you have a powerful machine, then it'll be fine. But you can use OpenRouter and VS Code. So there you go. Money saving experts, money tips was the most recent one we've got. Go get some free Lego. Cheap British gas. Anyway, so as you can see here, that works fine, and we can use Ollama. So the next test for it is we got the OpenAI, got the API key from here. Oh, my head's in the way. Let me move myself down. We have up here in OpenRouter, we can get keys, get the API key. And then once I have the API key, which I created one here, we just copy and paste that into RuCode. So RuCode here, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see a bit better. I talk about it in the school community. People talk about it online. You can Google it if you don't know. Basically, inside VS Code, or you can join the school community and find out how. Inside of got Classroom. Inside Classroom, you want to go to Tech 101. In Tech 101, you can install to AI Tools Mastery. Inside here, there's a development section. You can learn the basics about how to get up and running with, for example, VS Code. And then we can go to RuCode, and there's a video there showing you how to install it and actually use it, and why you would. So anyway, we have it here running. Now, RuCode. We have it here. If we go up to settings, here we can connect to OpenRouter, paste in your API key, and then the model you can select here. So if you just write in Qwen, we can see all the free ones. So we have the big massive chunky one here, and that's completely free. API, that's all good. Let's save that, click done. Now, this does work. So what we're going to test is we've hooked up the Brave Search MCP server. So MCP servers essentially allow you to connect to APIs and stuff programmatically using like a single server, as opposed to having to save all of them. So instead of having to know every single thing that Brave Search can do, you can just add Brave Search as an MCP, and then your AI agent will connect to the MCP server and say, listen, what can you do? And then it will tell it, and then it can select from there what to do. So it allows the natural language model to, a large language model, to actually then decide what to do, instead of you having to tell it if this, then this, which is cool. So we have Brave Search hooked up here. The way to do this, by the way, is edit global MCP, then you want to add it in here. You can see my key here, that's fine, I'll delete it afterwards. But to get that, we'll go to Brave Search, and you want to sign up or log in, and then you want to click add an API key once you're in, API keys, add one, and use that. And as for the actual MCP servers themselves, we can go to Model Context Protocol servers, here, and this is the GitHub with all of the MCP servers, and we are using Brave Search. So bam, we're using this one here. If we scroll down, you'll always be able to find this here, MCP servers, with the command, npx, the args, environment, and your API key. And you just copy that, and then come onto RuCode, and from here you click on this, which is your little MCP servers bit, edit global, in here, paste that in, save it, bam, done, sorted. So from here, we're going to test it to see if it can actually use the MCP server effectively. So we're going to say something like, we want a website which is a directory site of the top 3, I don't know, gyms in the UK. Go make it. Search the web if you need to. Boom. Let's see what it does. For this, probably could leverage something like RuCode Orchestrate or Boomerang tasks, which are things which I kind of know a little bit about and keep meaning to cover on the channel and in the school community, but there's just so much stuff to do all the time that I never get around to stuff that's not my absolute musts. So RuCode wants to read this file, that's fine. You'll see here that I've auto-approved everything in RuCode, so it can read, write, check the browser, use MCPs, etc, etc. So it's reading, I think, the files that we currently have, see what it has to do. There you go, it's using the MCP server, which is cool. It got back the top 3 results from the query against Brave Web Search. The query it found out itself because it just had to ask the server, what do you have? It said, oh, you can search, and it's gone and searched, which is cool. And now, based on that, it will try and make the website. You can see here that it's thinking, blah, blah, blah. So we can see that it does use MCP servers, which is cool. Now let's see what it actually decides to create. So we'll see its kind of creative side here, and essentially how good it is at coding as well, to some degree. Full stack development, I suppose. So it's going to edit this file, and as I said before, I've auto-approved for it to do everything. If you don't want it to have automatic permissions, because the worrying thing here, right, is that you're letting RuCode go on, essentially Qwen go in and edit any of the files that it wants, reading any file that it wants. Beware of that, by the way. And so from here, one major problem that you run into is a solution which I have in development basics. So in here, I talk very briefly about GitHub. Storing and sharing code, also used for version control using Git. Why it matters, it lets you track changes to your code. So, using something like GitHub is a good way to stop having RuCode or something overwrite files and then it's gone forever. So, just keep that in mind. So, let's click run command. Boom, top 3 gyms in the UK. David Lloyd, Pure Gym, and the Gym Group. If we visit the website, the link works. Hey, that's very cool actually, isn't it? Bam. Let me see if I can jazz it up, make it look a bit more modern, and add some SEO wording. It's pretty bare. So as you can see, it works with MCPs, which is cool, and it was able to make that website. So yeah, all in all, honestly, I mean, I'm pretty impressed-ish. The main thing is that the fact that it's open weights. So the fact that it's open weights doesn't really affect you or me, probably, right? And in the absolute sense. Because essentially, we don't really care if it's open weight because we can't run it, right? You and me, normal guys. We're probably not running it. We don't have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of GPUs to run these models. And do we have data that's so sensitive that we have to? Probably not. But the reason that it's cool for open weights is because essentially it then kind of like kills some of the monopolization of things like OpenAI. Because if they have the same sort of, let's run this, if they have the same, hey, that actually looks pretty cool. I mean, it looks kind of like an ad in our fake website where it'd say like, you know, David Lloyd in your local area is looking for you or something. But like, hey, it's actually pretty cool that it works as well. But yeah, the main thing is like if you think about it as OpenAI have the secret sauce, right? And their secret sauce is the compute that it runs and the data that they use to train the model and the weights of the model. That's the kind of three secret sauce stuff, right? Now, if the weights are open, right, that means then that you could replicate that part. You could then see how it's run on what GPUs. So that kind of half kills the GPU problem. Now the third problem, obviously not fully because they might just steal all the GPUs and then you can't buy any. But thirdly, the problem is training data, which is one of the big problems because you don't know what data has been trained on. So you know that the weights are this. So you could have the same weights as someone else, but you don't know how it got those weights. And that's one of the big distinctive problems between open source and open weights is like open source code, you can see it. You can see the code, you can see exactly what it does. Open weights, you can't see exactly what it does. You can just see a big set of numbers such that you can download it and say that you have the same thing as someone else. But that's about it. So it's not very under the hood as you would think. Anyway, long and short of it, Qwen, yeah, it's pretty cool. But the main thing is, it is cool that they now have a model which kind of rivals some of these major models, and it's cool that it's another one because again we don't want like the open weights market to be monopolized by DeepSeek, for instance, because Llama's done their thing bringing out more stuff, Meta, Llama, but honestly those models are pretty rubbish in my opinion. Qwen seems to be alright, but yeah. That is the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, like, comment, subscribe. Come and check out the Apply.AI community. Essentially the goal of this was to have somewhere where someone can go from zero to building AI automations and leveraging AI, applying AI with the latest tools in AI. Hence why inside the classroom we have AI foundations, AI agents, Tech 101, then the tools mastery, keeping you up to date, prompt based to get you started, templates to get you started, masterclass, and then AI content where we're actually running an experiment to see if my AI clone can generate me essentially any money and any subscribers. So the first people to know will be inside the community. So come join now. There will be a founding members discount for $27 a month, and that will last forever because the price is just going to continually increase as the number of members does too. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.